Hey guys, Willie and Murfitt here, and once again we are working on my Clubman. Okay, so in the last video on this car we removed the engine. In today's video I'm going to try and remove the front subframe. Now there's a few things that I need to do before I can remove it, and one of the main things is to disconnect the front brake pipe, so that's the first thing I'm going to do. Then I'm going to go around and remove the top mounts for the suspension, which is inside the wheel arch. That's where the shock absorber belts to. I've got to undo the top tower bolts. I've got one this side and one this side. I've got some bolts that hold the subframe to the front footwells. So there's going to be 2 bolts this side and 2 bolts this side. And then the teardrop's right at the front, so I've got 1 bolt this side and 1 bolt this side. Once all of that's done, it should drop out. At that point I'm going to put something underneath the subframe to try and support the weight, and then lower it down and remove it out from the car. Once that's done, the next thing to do is to clean up all the bulkhead, ready for a bit of a touch of a paint. And then once that's done, the new subframe can be fitted and the engine can go back in. So it all sounds pretty simple. So what are we waiting for? Let's crack on. Okay, so while Tooney's van was in the garage, I remembered to move my car out. So what I've done is a bit of rope, I've tied the exhaust and the gear selector up, so that's supported by this. So I can remove this off now and let that drop down. The next part I have to do is to remove this pipe over here. Now the pipe comes from the brake master cylinder, down to the brake slave cylinder, and then down into the split. So I have one pipe going from the slave cylinder to the back of the car, and then it splits left and right, and I have one pipe going for the front of the car, and then it goes down, and then it goes all the way around the front of the car as well. So for the front brakes, it goes down this pipe here into this union here, which is the slave cylinder. It then goes down along the subframe into this union here where you've got a banjo bolt. This controls your front right, and then round here your front left brake as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is to disconnect this pipe. Once this is disconnected, I can then have access to drop the subframe out. Now while the reservoir is completely full of brake fluid, I'm going to disconnect this pipe, move it to the side and put the pipe into a bottle to allow all the fluid to drain out. Now as I've said previously, brake fluid is hydroscopic, so it does absorb water, which is why it needs to be replaced and revamped every now and again. Once it absorbs the water, it becomes inactive and could be quite threatening on the road. So to try and keep things neat and tidy, I've got a brake bleeding bottle, and I'm just going to cable tie this around the brake pipe. Now what this means is that when I disconnect the pipe, I can put this into here and this isn't going to fall down and spill over the floor. Taking my 11mm spanner, I can just get onto the end of this nut here. Crack that off. It's really tight. Now there's going to be a little bit of fluid leaked here, so we've got to try and act quite quickly. Now if you have brake fluid over your hands, the best thing to do is to get rid of these gloves. The second this touches the paintwork, it'll start to corrode unless you wash it off immediately. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to pump the brake a few times to try and get the fluid level down, and it'll drain into this bucket. And of course, if you're not wearing gloves, wash your hands immediately before touching anything else. So I just put a bit of rag there to try and soak up any of the fluid that's leaked out. Now that's probably going to continue to drip for quite some time, which is absolutely fine. But with that pipe disconnected, we can now look to start lowering the subframe out. Okay, so it's quite difficult to try and film this part of the process because there's not really a lot of room. I've had to have the camera outside because I've moved the car quite far forward. But what I've done is I've removed the shock absorbers. So that's removing the top bolt and the bottom bolt, and the shock absorbers are both now off. So the bottom bolt is attached to the upper suspension arm, and the top bolt is actually attached to a bracket that's mounted to the body. So without dropping this off, you can't remove the subframe out. So that's now off. Next job to do is to remove the two bolts, one here and one here. Now I've upgraded this side to a towing eye, so let's get that bit there off. Okay, so that is my towing eye off, which I'm going to reuse again. Onto the other side. Well, that's that part out. So in theory, the only bolts left to undo are the ones inside the car, through the floor, and the nuts are underneath. So let's get underneath the car, release those last brackets, and hopefully we can put the subframe. So it looks like the last bolts now holding the subframe in are the tower bolts. So I'm going to get a jack underneath the subframe, probably held with a piece of wood, and then slowly lower it down as I'm undoing these bolts. Hopefully it'll just edge down slowly, 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 and then come out. I've never done this part before, so fingers crossed. Okay, so where we're up to. I've put a piece of wood supporting the subframe. One thing I did miss off was actually the battery terminal was screwed on in a few places, and I had to cut this mount here off. But other than that, there was a screw here, and a screw there. So two of them came off, one of them didn't. The next thing I've done is obviously taken off the front bolt there, the front bolt here, and if we go underneath, I've taken off the shock absorber from up here. Also underneath, on the subframe mount, I've taken off the two bolts that secure the subframe to the mount. So yeah, I think that's about it. I'll release this bolt here and this bolt here, and it should hopefully drop. So the first bolt's out. I've left the other side on a couple of threads just in case there's nothing that, or something else that's in the way. So easy does it. Okay, looks good. See the towel bolt out. I missed a bolt off. Track backward ends of both sides are still attached to the steering rack. So when it's dropped down, let's cut a snag. Let's quickly whip them off and it should drop out. That is heavy. Right. Fantastic. Right. The subframe is out. Let's take a look at the damage then. Pretty good on the passenger side, and a slight bit of corrosion around here on the driver's side. So that should all just clean up, which is fine. I need to replace the steering rack boots on both sides, but all in all, I'm extremely happy with how that bodywork looks. Now, considering when I first did this rebuild, I didn't actually touch any of this. I didn't remove the subframe, I just left it. Considering it's a 40-year-old car, the bodywork looks fantastic. So let's move the subframe out of the way and start cleaning up the bodywork here. Now with a wire brush, I'm just going to kind of clean up some of this bulkhead, hopefully not reveal too much damage behind this paint. And all being well, a light sort of scraping with this, a bit of underseal, and then some paint, and we are laughing. Interesting place to find some nuts. Right guys, the battery on the camera is about to die, so I'm going to sign off here saying thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed the video, as always, please click down below to the like button, comment as well, and if you can, subscribe to the channel. There'll be more stuff coming in this car very soon, so ring that bell so you won't miss out on any future content. See you later. Take it easy.